Hi, I'm Patty Wood-Finkel, Director of Museums at Casper College.
And I'm her partner in crime, JP Cavagelli, the Prep Lab Manager, Field Trip Organizer, and Collections Manager at the Tate Geological Museum at Casper College in lovely Wyoming.
And we are going to take you on a tour of the Rex Annex. The Rex Annex, dedicated May 31st, 2017, has allowed the Tate Geological Museum to expand their preparation operation. As you can see at the top of this image, we have an air handling system that provides both heat and air conditioning, which is very important in our dry western environment. The annex also provides for additional storage, open storage, to house specimens while we are prepping them, as well as to lay out larger specimens. As you can see at the bottom of the frame, Lee Rex will be passing in front of you, however, we will get to him in a little bit. On this wall, we have the pneumatic tool / air compressor system. The compressor is actually located outside of this building in an adjacent closet, which cuts down on the noise greatly in the facility. However, all of the controls are located inside. We were also able to have a 2-car garage door installed. The floor is rated for forklifts, very heavy jackets. So instead of trying to manhandle the jackets in or put them on a cart and wheel them in, we can bring the forklift directly into the annex.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we discovered this thing, this T-Rex that this building was built for. We've been working on this ranch for a few years, and we do a little bit of exploring of different kinds. And at one point, I found some bones, and in this picture, you can see me crouching on the ground, pointing to vertebrae that are on the ground. Now you'll notice there's not much to look at here, but the one I'm pointing to is a vertebra. And if you look down in front of my knees, my left knee there's more vertebrae pieces. And they look a little bit like this close up, like this next photo. There's a paintbrush for scale that is 2 inches across. To the right of the paintbrush is a vertebra. To the right of that is a broken up vertebra. To the left of the paintbrush is a undulating hard rock, suggesting that there are more vertebrae lined up inside the rock right there. Now we left it in place for a little while because the part that was scary is the hard rock. We have quite a few other sites on this ranch that we can work at that are not hard rock, and we didn't know what it was, so we weren't inspired by its actual contents. A few years later, we decided to actually go for it and see what we could see what we could find. The goals were to A, find out what it was, B, find out how big it was, and C, decide what to do with it. After 2 days of digging with a small crew, we actually realized it was a partial T-Rex skeleton. We have in this picture, you can see the blue outlines here by the tail. There was 2 exposed tail bones that we saw. The light blue are the chevrons, and between those 2 bones, this was identified as a T-Rex. So at this point, you can see other colors where other bones were sticking out. The pink circle over here is where we found some neck bones, which were also distinctively T-Rex. So we knew we had a T-Rex. We knew we had articulated vertebrae leading to the tail. The black in the middle is that an initial discovery where we could tell there was articulated vertebrae. The yellow is the tip of the femur. The green over on this end is the pieces of the pelvis sticking out, and orange underneath this worker is ribs that were coming out of the softer shale. So we talked to the landowners about it, and they gave us the right to collect it. And the next year, we organized a full-on attack. We publicized that we were going to be working on T-Rex from such and such date until another ending date. And we got a bunch of volunteers to come out. We spent 5 weeks at the site. We had some folks help with material goods, such as the cage you see here was provided by an outfit in town called Pepper Tank here that makes basically large metal structures for the oil field. We also were donated a crane that could pick this thing up and a flatbed truck that could bring it to the museum. And naturally, we got a lot of publicity for this thing too, which was really nice, which is one of the things that helped us make it easy to find funds to build this building.
This is a brief orientation of Lee Rex skeleton. The head would be located where the headphones are located on the jacket. You can see we have almost all of the ribs here, half of which are articulated in live position. Going down further into the torso, you can see the femur here is turned upside down. It should be pointed the other way, away from the camera, but the way the femur is pointed, it allows us to see all of the pieces of the pelvis, which is very exciting. Following the skeleton down, we start to see the tail vertebra as they extend away from the body and towards the tip of the tail. And we will come back and talk about some of the pathologies of Lee Rex in a moment.
Hello and welcome back to our T-Rex. Following in Patty's previous little talk, we're going to look at the pathologies on this thing, starting with the femur right here. This is the femur. That is the upper leg bone of Mr. Lee Rex, Mr. or Mrs. Lee Rex. The one thing that this thing has that is really unusual is this hole right here. In the video, you can probably see my finger disappearing into his bone. There's not just a hole, but there's also a landing area for this puncture. We don't know what caused it, but we have a pretty good theory. When the preparators found this hole, they were wondering if it was maybe a bite mark from another T-Rex. And so they prepared underneath in here to look for opposing bite marks, and they found nothing. So it's probably not a T-Rex bite mark. There's other reasons it's probably not, but it's not a T-Rex bite mark. We're thinking, this thing was a really solid bone in real life. And we are thinking that this had to be done by something with some great power, great strength, or great mass, such as a Triceratops with a real pointy horn. So we think this is probably a Triceratops wound. There's debate amongst us whether it killed the animal or not. It could be. We don't know for sure. We don't even know for sure if it's a Triceratops horn, but we like the story and we have nothing to prove that it's not, and it is a good explanation for that bizarre hole. Step number 2, let's go this way just a little bit. And let's look at the tailbones over here. These 3 tailbones, 1, 2, 3, should be separate bones like these other ones that you can see. But they're not. They're fused mass of tailbone, and also the chevrons, which are those 2 bones sticking out the back, are also fused to them. They shouldn't be fused. So there's also some really strange bone growth right in here, showing that these bones have been injured and then healed up, and we don't know what that is all about, but we have much better suspicions on this one. We showed this to some T-Rex experts, and the one fella, Pete Larson, said that he has seen this on about half the specimens he's looked at, and not just random tailbones, but right at the base of the tail. So his theory, and I like it, is that it's a side effect of making baby T-Rexes. T-Rex sex was not pretty, and it was not safe. Hello again. I'm standing now in the storage corner of the Rex Annex. We've got, as you can see, a couple of shelves, and we're using them as kind of temporary storage. Over here we've got a series of pterodactyl footprints in sandstone. I don't know if you can see that, but there you go. There's a whole series, and these are basically waiting to be cataloged. We've collected these a few years ago, and they're waiting to be cataloged. It's a slow process. There's also tool storage for the employee, the volunteers who work out here. On the other side, we got another storage shelf which is holding some bones, which are related to this whole project on this table. One of my volunteers has been working on this jacket of dinosaur bones, and she has been doing it for about 2 years now, and she's slowly taking things apart and putting them back together. And when she gets a complete bone, she stacks them up on the shelf here, complete with the numbers, based on her drawings and pictures from the way they were set up in the field. And the stuff on the table here, so she's got half a dozen vertebrae. There's a few more in the main prep lab where she's still working on them. And then the stuff on the tables that you just saw is all parts of the pelvis that she's going to hopefully put back together as best as she can. And this is, again, temporary storage.
Although it doesn't look like much now, this corner of the Rex Annex is actually used as our 3D photography studio. As you can see in the image, Helen hangs a fabric backdrop from the shelving units and then sets up her table and Lazy Susan. Using this method, she is able to take photos and then stitch them together into 3D images.
Hello again, and now we are at the front end of the T-Rex Annex. You can see the T-Rex is here behind me. The garage door is that away. And in front of me, between me and you, is the other project we're working out here, main project. This is an ichthyosaur collected here about 40 miles north of town. One of my volunteers have been working on this one for about a year. It was in a very hard rock. And what we've got here, if you can see, is, well, I'd like to pull this back, but I don't want to disturb his work. But this is his front flipper, and you can see the humors here and the radius, and and then in here, these little things, that's sort of his flipper bones. Let's pan this way. Dwayne, my volunteer, just removed the skull from this area. We'll have a look at that in a second. But here's another flipper. You can see that same humerus that we just saw in the previous one, and then wrist bones, if you will, and then a bunch of little bones here. These are the flipper bones, and they go, finger bones. They go all the way over the place. There's a few over here. There's one there. No, that's not one. There's a few laying over here. And it is laying on a string of vertebrae. But let's not look at that. Yes, let's look at a string of vertebrae that goes all the way to the end, and there's another string running parallel coming back this way, and there's a third string going that way. This last one, we believe, is the atlas axis, which is the first vertebra connecting to the skull. And why they're laying parallel and perpendicular to each other, we have no idea. But it's not the first time we've seen this kind. We have another one in the collections with parallel vertebrae. And off to the side is a bunch of ribs. Hold on a second. I'm not authorized to pick this up out of its box, because I'm just the guy in charge. But this is the skull piece that Dwayne removed just this morning out of that area right in front. I don't know if you can see it, but what we're looking at here, it's a partial skull, but this is the occipital condyle, which connects to that first vertebra we just looked at a second ago. This is a piece of rib. This is going to the back of the skull, towards his, I guess you'd call it, the top of the back of the skull. And we're not exactly sure how it all fits together, but when he gets it cleaned up, we'll be able to have ichthyosaur specialists look at it and study it. And that's what I have to say right now.
After Lee Rex was brought in from the field, we housed him temporarily in a truck bay that's used to teach students how to work on semi-trailers. Luckily, we had this chalkboard that we were able to mount on the wall so that people that visited him could sign their name and leave us a note. As you can see, we have signatures from people from all over the world. Thank you for joining us of this tour of the Rex Annex. We appreciate the opportunity to present our external prep lab to the world.
This is JP Cavagelli and Patty Finkel of the Tate Geological Museum in Casper, Wyoming, signing off for now. Thanks everybody.
Hi, welcome back everyone. That was absolutely amazing tour to watch. I'll just wait for JP and Patty to join the stream, but we've obviously had a lot of comments in there about how wonderful it's been to be able to kind of travel around and see different museums, and I think this is certainly one of those examples that we probably wouldn't have ever got to Casper on a NATSCA conference to tour the Tate Geological Museum. So thank you for coming, and thank you, in fact, particularly to Patty and JP, because I think it's about 5 in the morning in Wyoming at the moment. So again, wonderful dedication for being here. So we've got a few questions. My first is that, well, like people said, that it's wonderful to go behind the scenes in the Rex Annex and see the work taking place. Do you have public visits? Is it somewhere that you can take people to tour?
We do take visitors out there. Right now we are short-staffed, so people do have to request to go out there, but our educator Russell is happy to take tours out there anytime anyone asks. In a normal summer or a normal year, we do take regular tours out there as well. JP, you want to add anything? You're muted.
JP, you're muted.
Yeah, we don't do regularly scheduled tours, but we announce them on museums, so we can just go. We're going out to see Rex, and we usually, on busy summer days, we'll do 3 or 4 tours in a day if we have the time. But it's more spontaneous than scheduled.
Mm-hmm.
And people love it because they actually touch. We sacrifice the tip femur. That's the touching. People can touch the tip femur, and they go away with good memories.
I bet. Wonderful. You mentioned volunteers working a lot on the project. Is that from your student body, or is it part of their kind of undergraduate teaching or postgraduate teaching?
I missed that. Say it again, Jack.
Sorry, I asked.
I can answer that. JP's breaking up a little bit.
Go ahead, Patty.
Most of our volunteers are actually retired folks that come in. They have the time to come in during the day. We do occasionally have a student volunteer that comes in from campus, and we do have interns, although usually they don't get to prep. We have interns from the college program, but usually they work on collections management with us and exhibits. Yeah, so most of our volunteers, Dwayne and Helen, the volunteers that we talked about in the session, are all retired.
Okay, great. So we've got a few questions coming in from conference participants. The first of which is, do you have any idea what happened to the head?
I'm going to let JP answer that one.
There's 2 possibilities. One is that it disappeared, got separated from the animal 65 million years ago. The other possibility is that it got separated while in the past, during the Ice Age, I guess, when the modern landscape was being created. And it's hard to say which one is more powerful than the other, but I pretty much think that it got separated from the animal 65 million years ago. The way that femur is displaced and some of the ribs are displaced, I think the whole animal decomposed at some point, and all the middle part of the animal, which is what we have preserved, kind of shifted about 3 feet over. And I think in that shifting, that was probably inspired by strong river currents. I think the shifting probably took away the rest of the animal, which would have been more decomposed. Keep in mind, this is all theoretical with a little bit of evidence to back it up, but I don't know if we can prove it.
Sure. And sticking with the specimen itself, someone's asked,
We'll add, we dug a really big hole looking for that. Sorry, Jack. I just was saying that we dug a really big hole after we were done the main excavation, and we did not find it. We didn't find anything else.
I'm sure you looked
very
hard.
I'm done.
And so sticking with the specimen, another question, I guess, inspired by Giles's talk, perhaps. How much of the matrix are you retaining, and are there plans to look for microfossils in it?
On that one, we didn't retain much of the matrix. because it's a concretion, limestone concretion. And the preparators found one crocodile tooth. We found a bunch, I would say a couple dozen small fossils in the hole we made collecting that thing. But on some of the other specimens we collect, which are more sandy matrix, we have been through tons and tons of matrix, and we are getting a very good collection of late Cretaceous microvertebrates from that material. And half of it is awaiting cataloging and curating. Excuse me?
I was going to ask the question, are you looking for the kind of microfossils as well, with forearms and things like that?
Oh, that micro, no, not. We don't know anything about that. So when I talk microfossils, I'm talking micro like this, mammal teeth, lizard pieces. So not micro like that. Microvertebrates.
Sure. So Nigel Larkin has asked, how heavy was the jacket and the cage that you lifted it in? Looked pretty sturdy.
We actually had a little petition when we brought this thing in, a little fundraising thing, and you put a bet in as to how much you think the thing weighed. And I don't know how long we had it, but for whatever period that competition went on, the crane operator was the only person who knew it, and he did a good job of keeping it secret. But it was, what was it, 25,000 pounds roughly? And it still weighs 12,000 pounds at this point. And a lot of that is metal. There's a lot of metal in the structure that's still holding it up. It's pretty heavy, and the floor on the new building is reinforced with it's a cement with rebar reinforcement. And one of the reasons we can't put it in the museum is that it doesn't fit width-wise through the doors, and the museum floor is all hollow because there's heating and air conditioning underneath it, and we don't know if it'll support 12,000 pounds of dinosaur.
I bet. So what
Patty says no.
What are the plans? How far are you planning to prep it down, and then where will it go? Is it staying in the annex?
We're gonna leave it in the, because you guys saw it there, because it is not articulated. We're gonna mount in a 3D light position, because at that point we'd have to basically borrow a lot of casts from other specimens, and it is nicely articulated. So we're gonna leave it in that position. We have high hopes and dreams of getting a new building someday, and at that point we'd still leave it articulated, and we are debating how exactly to display it at that point, but we'll cross that bridge when the new building gets promised.
So my preferred idea is that we'll have, and this is not like an original idea, other museums have done this before, but they have a big glass floor with the T-Rex underneath it, so people could walk on top of it with an outline as to where the rest of the body would be. Which I think it'd be really cool, and it'd be a really nice meeting space as well for the museum. So
We both like that idea.
yeah.
On the theme of kind of wish lists, what the final question we've got so far is, if you could get any kind of tech for Casper, new tech for Casper, what would it be and why?
I don't know what.
I'm a big fan of CAT scan machines. I would get a CAT scan. Patty, what would you like? I heard you answer this question.
I would honestly, I would like less tech, and I'd like an IT tech support person to manage all the tech we already have.
Yeah, people always in limited supply.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and particularly for getting up so early in the morning. It's been really wonderful. We've had, you say you're not on Twitter, we've had some really wonderful comments on Twitter about how fantastic it is to be able to see your facility, and also in the chat too. So it's been a wonderful part of the day. So thank you, and we'll see Patty again tomorrow in the Lightning Talk sessions. So we'll see you then. So JP and Patty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.